is the Sutliffian Report with your host, Paul Sutliff, right here. And I have with me today Len Getz. Now, Len Getz is one of those incredible individuals who goes out and gets the heart and the meat of the story. Now, I have two of his stories that I want us to discuss with Len, but let's talk about who Len Getz is. Len Getz has a CPA. He is Philadelphia's counter-Islamist grid associate, whose work has appeared in The American Thinker, PJ Media, Algerminer, The Jewish Exponent, Lockhaven Express, Inside Magazine, and more. What I want to get into tonight are two incredible stories. One of them has to do with the census in Pennsylvania, and another one has to do with the U.S. Army War College. Now, without further ado, let's bring Len in. Here we go. And trying it. Len, are you there? And he was going to call in. Trying here. Len, are you there? Oh, we have to wait for him to call back in, I guess. If he doesn't, I'll have to call him. Okay. We are live, and that's the joy of being live radio. Hopefully he will call back in the next minute or two. I do have other pieces of the show to get into today. And let me see if I can send him a quick email real quick. Here we go. Just ask him to call back in. We can call him back in if we have to. Call in. All right. Okay. So here we go. Let me tell you about the other parts of the show that I want to do today. Last week I talked about COVID-19, and it seems that other news agencies are all of a sudden following suit. Well, I was second on the bandwagon at least, because the people ahead of me like Brad Johnson, Rare Foundation, Vlad Tepes blog, they were ahead. And you know what? Today, Rebel News put out something saying the exact same stuff I said last week. So we're ahead of the game. The joy of being ahead feels really good. Today, also, yesterday, PJ Media also released incredible information on COVID-19, so we'll be talking about that too. And after that, we will talk about how the world is responding to COVID-19, particularly how Islamists are responding. But we're just waiting for Len to call back in. I've got his other stuff live. I'm waiting for him to call back in. Here we go.
Now?
Yep, you're live now, Len.
Yeah, I was able to hear you before. In fact, I have my headphones. I can still hear you.
Well,
so I'm not sure what the problem was.
That's weird. I couldn't hear you, so I don't know. Sometimes things just screw up technologically, and it truly takes a technology to make things difficult. So
right. Yeah, and I was able to hear you before with my headphones, and then suddenly, I guess after I was muted, when I came back, I don't know, I couldn't hear you. You couldn't hear me.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm on the phone right now.
Okay, so let's talk about your article on the census and CAIR's involvement. And I say thank you again for joining us. One of your recent works is called "Tell Governor Wolf to Dump Terror-Tied Islamist Group from Census Commission," and it's important in that it exposes either his ignorance or a true desire to subvert our way of life in the United States and support groups with connections to terrorism. So how did you find out about CAIR being involved in the United States Census?
So first of all, in February of 2019, Governor Wolf put together a composition of what he calls Census 2020 Complete Count Commission. As you know, the census is very important to get an accurate count of the number of people in Pennsylvania so they can get their services or get funding for the number of people in Pennsylvania. And so he needs organizations to help him complete the census. And so he organized a commission, and he put together numerous organizations that would help him in the census. And among those organizations was the Council on American Islamic Relations, or better known as CAIR. Now, in September, the United States Census Bureau also tapped CAIR to work with the Federal Census Bureau, but after a number of complaints by various organizations who are in tune to CAIR's involvement with terrorist organizations and being an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest Hamas fundraising operation in the history of the United States, the Holy Land Foundation. When this information was presented to the U.S. Census Bureau, the Bureau severed its ties with CAIR almost immediately. But not so Governor Wolf. Governor Wolf is still holding on to CAIR, and I'm actually at a loss to understand how Governor Wolf expects CAIR, Pennsylvania, to work with the U.S. Census Bureau when the U.S. Census Bureau refuses to work with them. So it's really it's quite astonishing, and I'm not sure whether Governor Wolf understands the problem with working with CAIR. But which is one problem, which is bad enough, but what would be worse if he does understand what CAIR is about and still partners with them, that would be a worse problem.
I mean, it's almost like that's the issue. Is he doing this ignorantly or oh my gosh, or treasonously? That's what it really comes down to. I want to say I'm sorry. I want to say your use of logic is flawless. I had to laugh as you cited statistical reasons not to use CAIR as a census partner. Could you share those statistics, please? I mean, the laughable part is how it reveals CAIR has little, if any, strength. You got to listen to this. This is, to me, it was funny. I'm sorry. Could you share that, please?
So back in, let's start with 2006. There was a Washington Times report, and it talked about the membership that CAIR has. So when you think about the Muslim community in the United States, there's about 5 million Muslims in the United States. But back in 2006, only 1,700 were members of CAIR. That is like a tiny fraction of the number of Muslims who live in this country. And then in 2011, there was a Gallup poll that showed less than 12% of the Muslim Americans would choose CAIR from a list of Islamic organizations that represent their values. And then, if you look on, you can actually look on as a nonprofit. You can look at their tax return is available online, and the last tax return that's available online to see shows zero membership revenue from CAIR going to CAIR. It doesn't even seek to get memberships. There's no membership there's no membership application. But what they do encourage are donations, and particularly foreign donations. That is prominently solicited on their website. So what it comes down to is CAIR really has no affiliation, very little affiliation with any particular Muslim group or mosque. All they do is really talk to themselves. That's what it comes down to.
And their PR is mainly just to promote themselves and make these outlandish claims that they're a civil rights group. Wow.
Yeah, they're very good PR. They talk about being a Muslim civil rights group, but they're really not. They engage themselves in international issues. They engage themselves in BDS. And what does BDS have to do with Muslim rights in the United States, human rights? It has absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Thank you for saying that. That's exactly right. So CAIR isn't trusted by the FBI either. Why is that?
So that question goes back to the actual CAIR's inception. Its beginnings, the CAIR's beginnings can actually be traced to a 1993 meeting of Sunni Islamists at the Marriott Hotel in Philadelphia, a hotel that I'm very familiar with. The FBI wiretapped their meeting in this hotel and various other meetings as well, subsequent to that one. And what these wiretaps revealed is how CAIR's future leaders, which was then part of a Hamas propaganda wing called the Islamic Association of Palestine, they were discussing ways to start an Islamist organization that could disguise itself as a civilian Muslim human rights advocacy organization, a nonprofit, but really would never cease to be as loyal to the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, which is, as you know, is a designated terrorist organization in the United States. That's what CAIR is. And numerous government agencies have blacklisted CAIR because of its controversial past. The FBI and other state police organizations, departments have severed their relations with CAIR. As you probably know, the United Arab Emirates designated CAIR as a terrorist organization in 2014. This is interesting, in 2009, there were 50 Minneapolis residents of Somalian descent, and they were protesting CAIR for discouraging them to cooperate with the FBI because at that time there were several dozen of Somali men that went missing, and they were suspected of joining a terrorist organization, and so they wanted to work with the FBI to track them down. And you have CAIR here telling these residents, no, don't work with the FBI. You know, so it's almost as if they were in cahoots with the terrorist organization, which it was Al Shabaab. That was the one that was recruiting these men. So in essence, they were taking Al Shabaab's side and against the residents, people who they're supposed to be supporting, right? They're supposed to be a Muslim human rights advocacy organization. They're suppressing their right, for their human right to find where these men, where they were, because they were missing. And then in 2011, CAIR California came under heavy criticism because they were displaying a huge image, a sign that says, "Build a wall of resistance. Don't talk to the FBI." So you can see why the FBI is not happy about CAIR. But what's on the plus side, it's good to see that there's like for example, there's Arkansas. Their state legislature passed a resolution urging law enforcement agencies to cut ties with CAIR. A Minnesota hate crimes panel was canceled because of CAIR's involvement. So you can understand why FBI is irritated, but it's good to see that other states have acknowledged CAIR's past, and well, not just past, but their current ties with Hamas. But it's disappointing, I must say, that Governor Wolf has not. At least he hasn't so far.
These things are kind of mind-blowing when you think of the consistency of what's being said, and how can somebody hold that office and not be aware? That's what it comes down to. One of the strongest arguments you make for your point is your claim, quote, "How can CAIR foster trust and build confidence among Muslim communities when its co-religionists are inherently suspicious of its radical beliefs?" Can you share more about that?
So when you think about it, what does Governor Wolf really want to do? He wants to get people to take the census. He wants to encourage them to take the census, to be part of it. But by refusing to remove CAIR, however, he's actually doing two harmful things. Instead of encouraging Muslims to participate, he's pushing them away because they don't want to align themselves with a Hamas-affiliated organization. You know, they don't want to be part of that. They don't want to be associated with that. They want to be identified with being part of CAIR. So why would they want to be? Why would they want anything? Why would they want to do anything with the Census Bureau if CAIR is the one that they have to work with in order to work with the census? If they don't want anything to do with CAIR, they're not going to want anything. They're not going to want to do anything have anything to do with the census. And by working with CAIR, what Governor Wolf is doing is legitimizing an extremist organization. Its presence on a commission actually threatens to discourage Pennsylvania Muslims, isolated, in communities that are isolated from parts of isolated communities in rural areas. But it's also it's giving him a pedestal. It's putting him on a pedestal. It's giving him legitimacy, and that's a poor reflection on the governor. And once it's and if and when the understanding, the full understanding of who CAIR is, what they're all about, and I think Governor Wolf will be very, very embarrassed by his close association with them. I sent my article to the governor, and there's been no response. But we've had some positive responses from several state senators and state legislators who've been issued letters from constituents urging them to contact Wolf to get rid of CAIR. And for the people who are listening who are from Pennsylvania, if they haven't already done so, if you look at my article that's published on the Middle East Forum website, if you go to that article and you go towards the end of the article, there's a place that says "click here." So if you click there, it'll take you to another website, which is basically fill in a form, which is it's a very short, very brief form. It takes you about 2 minutes to complete it. But you take these 2 minutes, complete that form, and 3 letters will be sent out. One will be sent to your state legislator, one will be sent to your state senator, and one will be sent to Governor Wolf's office. So I urge anybody from Pennsylvania who's listening, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at this. Please look at the article, go down to that spot, and send your letters to your representatives. Because the more pressure we put on Governor Wolf, perhaps he'll get the idea that he should remove CAIR from its Census Commission.
So at the very least, you want to go to Lockhaven. Is lockhaven.com is where it is?
Well, Lockhaven is where the article originally appeared. But if you just go to the Middle East Forum.
Okay, Middle East Forum, and that's where the action is.
Okay. If you go to the Middle East Forum website, and then under their Islamist Watch section, there's several categories. If you go to Islamist Watch, my article appears there, and then you click on the article, and eventually you'll see the hyperlink to the place where you can fill out the form and contact all your representatives.
Definitely want to get that done. If you live in Pennsylvania, please do get involved. Please do send the letters. My recommendation is not email, it is snail mail or phone calls, because what happens you get these liberals that their way of dealing with email is pushing the delete button.
Well, we have responses. I must say we have had responses, and more people respond, and the more letters we get, we sent out. We've sent it over 300.
Wow.
The more they'll take notice.
No, I didn't realize there was that many. Wow, that's really good.
Well, that's the number of letters that we've sent out. We've sent that over, So the more letters that were sent out, the more they'll take notice. So it's being done. The letters are being sent, and they are taking notice. So there's a ground.
This is when the quarantine is over, guys. This is what's going to be on the grounds. If you're a Muslim, do you want CAIR at your door? Is what Len Getz is really saying. Do you want them at your door the day quarantine ends? Because my bet is the day quarantine ends, you're going to start seeing the census takers out on the streets.
Exactly. And while you're in quarantine or we're all at home, what better thing to do? You're already there. You're home anyway. Just go on the computer and send out those letters.
Thank you. Now, you also wrote an article on the U.S. Army War College and Raymond Ibrahim's speech there. I have to admit I'm jealous. I really wanted to go, but things just didn't work out for me. Can you give us a little background and why the speech took almost a year to happen?
So Raymond Ibrahim is a scholar of Islam and the Middle East. He's the Judith Friedman Rosen Writing Fellow with the Middle East Forum. He's written numerous articles that appeared in the Washington Post, LA Times. He's appeared on Al Jazeera, CNN. NPR, PBS. He's written 3 books, and the most recent book is Sword and the Scimitar, 14 Centuries of War Between Islam and the West. And he was scheduled to speak about his book at the Army War College in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, back in June of 2019. But the Council on American Islamic Relations, better known as CAIR, as we just spoke about, they began a campaign against Ibrahim's talk. They wrote letters to the college, established a website, a petition against him, and against allowing him to speak, calling him a bigot, a racist, a white nationalist, all because he writes the truth about the origins and the violent history of Islam, which is something CAIR does not want the American public to hear, especially from someone who's so prominent and accurate historian as Raymond Ibrahim, who, by the way, his parents are from Egypt. He's a Coptic Christian, so it's not clear to me how they can call him a white supremacist when he's from Egypt. In any case, he uses he's an very accurate historian. People believe him, and also CAIR in their complaints ridiculed the U.S. War College as an academic institution run on taxpayer funds, which was poised to exacerbate long-standing problems such as racism and human rights violations that exist within the the Army. So here they're insulting the Army itself. So at first, the Army War College assured Ibrahim that his speech was going as scheduled, there'd be no problem. But all of a sudden, they reversed themselves and canceled his talk. And many people were incensed by that, and how the War College caved in to all this pressure. So here's another example how a university or a war college doesn't even understand how little, how minuscule CAIR is. They make a loud noise, and suddenly they in the college hears their voice, and they got scared. But in response to that, in response to the disinvite, 10 congressmen wrote letters to the War College and demanding that he be allowed to speak. And the National Association of Scholars sent a letter to President Trump with 5,000 signatures, also demanding that he be allowed to speak. So finally...
I also wrote to Commandant Kern, and he actually called me.
Who called you?
Commandant Kern, the guy.
Okay, what did he say to you?
I wrote to him a possible solution, which they kind of did. He wanted to know. I don't think he understood. This is the thing that bothers me, and I talked to at least 3 or 4 professors from the U.S. Army War College. I don't think they understood the war here at home, known as civilization jihad. They understand the war away from home. They understand the hot war, that fighting jihadists. They understand that incredibly well. They're the best in the world at it. But I don't think they understood the war at home. And particularly, I really don't believe Commandant Kern understood it, nor did the person that he had me talk to in respect to this. But I gave them the solution. All that they had to do was schedule him for a different date and apologize publicly, saying, well, we accidentally put him into a theme that was for opinions. And history is not an opinion, so we're going to give it and that's kind of what they did if you look at the format they gave him. And maybe you were instrumental in getting him to change their mind, or you certainly added to it. They did. They didn't do it quickly.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure when you talked to them, but they did finally reverse themselves and scheduled him to speak in February. But that's very interesting that what you said about they're not understanding the war at home, because I'd like to get into that a little in a bit after we talk a little bit more about. That's what Raymond Ibrahim also says the same thing. He calls it the propaganda jihad, which is happening right here on this, in America. CAIR is a perfect example of organizations that engage in propaganda jihad. University professors, academics, academics such as people like Karen Armstrong and John Esposito from the Georgetown University. He mentioned all this at the talk as examples of people who part of this propaganda jihad, who basically lie and twist history and whitewash Islamists and blatantly just distort the whole history. So you think that the Islamists is a very a benign group of orthodoxy of religious people, but in fact we know it's not a whole ideology. But that's the kind of stuff that they want to suppress, and that's part of the war. That's part of the propaganda war. So it's interesting
Gary,
that.
Did they show up at the speech at all? Did they even show up in person?
I didn't see anyone that I recognized. No one actually stepped forward to say they're representing CAIR. So nobody did that. But it's interesting that you mentioned that there's a war here. It's a war of ideas, a war of words, and then just as jihadists seek to suppress religious beliefs, as we see the whole history of Islam, so do groups like CAIR work to suppress other ideas, different points of view, especially those that are verifiable. So it's if you repeat a lie and disinformation long enough and enough times, people come to believe you, and I think that's could be what the what the Army War College did, is believe CAIR's propaganda, and as you know, it took a great deal of effort to finally turn them around.
I did everything I could, and I'm sure you did too. It was insane.
I signed that letter.
Their reactions kind of shocked me as incredibly ignorant originally. So I gave them time to react before I decided to blast them. But let's get into this.
That's exactly right. That's why you need people like Raymond to come and talk about the truth and to stand there in front of an audience and say, well, this is here's what you thought. And this is what the history really shows. It's right. It's there. All you have to do is read it. It's there for everybody.
I would love to do that also. Maybe someday I'll hook up with someone there and see if I can get a chance. Now I'm hooked up with a few professors there, so we'll see.
I got it.
That was one of the wisest things I did when this was happening. Was I tried to connect with a lot of U.S. Army War College professors to see if I could get my message across. So maybe from working things from the inside and the outside, maybe we got lucky. So
everything worked.
Tell us about this speech. I'm jealous. I really wanted to be there. Tell us did he acknowledge any of CAIR's objections in his speech?
So his speech was really excellent. And one of the things he talked about is how how people talk about the Quran, and the Quran, you can have debates about the Quran and different interpretations of what they say and passages of what they say, but he also said one of the things he said was let's forget the Quran for a while and just let's take a look and see what Islamists have done over the years. And so he talked about what Islamists have done over the years, starting in the 7th century. And he talked about how Islamists have conquered the Middle East and North Africa. Right now, we know these areas as there's a Muslim majority there, but at that time it was home to Christians. There was more Christians there at that time than there were in Europe. And he even quoted a historian, Franco Cardini, who said, "Repeated Muslim aggression against Europe in the 7th and 8th centuries, and again the 14th and 18th century, was a violent midwife to Europe. And then he referred to the late Islamic historian Bernard Lewis, who said, "We forget that for 1,000 years, since the advent of Islam, from the 7th century to the siege of Vienna in 1683, Christian Europe was under constant threat from Islam, and the double threat of conquest and conversion, and violently wrested away from Christendom." So he's pointing. And then one interesting he said, he quoted what Islamists had said. He quoted Khalid bin Walid, who said to a Roman general before the Battle of Yarmouk, this is back in 636 CE, he said, "We Arabs are in the habit of drinking blood, and we are told that Roman blood is the sweetest of its kind. Where you love life, we love death." So when he presented all this information, he printed all these quotes, he cited the original sources, and so this is what CAIR is afraid of. They're afraid of somebody like Ibrahim, who they don't attack what he says, they don't address the actual content of his words, of what he's written. They just do name calling. They have nothing else to say. They just do name calling, and they can't even sustain the names that they have. There's nothing to even verify the name calling that they do. So it's very, very haphazard. It's a lot of noise, but unfortunately, people listen to that noise. But the people who were there, though, and I think there were about over 300 people there, they listened. They listened to actually to a scholar, someone who actually knows what he's talking about, someone who's done the research, who's read the history. And when you present it that way, not just some rhetorical, outlandish name calling, when you actually present the facts and have a clear understanding of it and present it in a very organized manner, then people get it. I think all those people got it, which was heartening.
That's probably the most important thing. Did they get it? Wow. So what connections did Ibrahim draw between the U.S. government and the Islamic Barbary pirates?
Yeah, so, when we think of terrorism against the U.S., we think of 9/11 as if 9/11 was the first time Islamists attacked America, attacked American civilians, And we wonder, a lot of people wonder, well, why are they attacking us? What did we do wrong? What did we do that got them so angry? Very few people know that the Islamist war against America began in the 1700s. In 1785, when the Islamic Barbary pirates attacked American merchant ships and took American sailors as slaves. And so at that time, we had ambassadors Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. They went to negotiate with Abdul Rahman, who at that time was the Tripoli ambassador to Britain, and Jefferson and Adams. They were just astonished to hear the explanation that Abdul Rahman gave them. He says to them, he said to Jefferson and Adam, he says, "It was founded on the laws of their prophet, written in the Quran, that all nations, not acknowledging their authority," meaning the Islamists, if you don't acknowledge their authority, then you are a sinner, and it's their religious right and duty to make slaves of non-believers. And all Muslim slaves, Muslims who are slain in battle, they're going to go to paradise. So, so to the people who so innocently ask about 9/11, they ask, what did we do wrong? What did we do wrong? What wrong did we do, Islamists? Well, we didn't do any wrong to Islamists on 9/11, just that we didn't do any wrong to the Barbary pirates in 1785.
We were just simply non-Muslims.
Exactly. We're just not them.
And that is, I do want to tell people that if you want to pick up one of the best books I've ever seen on the Barbary Pirates is a book called The Six Frigates. I was impressed. It gives you the actual military history behind it and the politics behind everything having to do with that event in history. And at the time, it even explains why again, this is the beginning of our Marine Corps, and why this ends up being an incredibly big event back then. It's considered one of the most strategic, best moves in military history. So personally, I found that fascinating. I didn't realize.
There's another book that's written by Josh London. It's Victory at Tripoli. He writes about the Barbary War and how it began. It was the impetus to building the United States Navy.
Yes.
So they can defend themselves against these Barbary pirates.
And the crazy thing is, for those of you who don't know, Jefferson was against the Navy until we had to do this. He actually had pretty much disbanded it until we had a need for it. So yeah. We're conservative, fiscal conservatives, and we didn't want to spend what we didn't have, and that was the reasoning. Wow. Okay, so you caught Ibrahim also quoting my cousin. He's about a third cousin. My great-grandmother's maiden name was Roosevelt. But you caught him quoting Teddy Roosevelt. And my great-grandmother actually went to his inaugural ball. So could you tell us what about that quote?
Wow. Didn't know you have such legacy.
I can't prove it anymore because in the Roosevelt family, if you don't have money, they don't recognize you. And they drop your entire chain from the family tree. But the Roosevelts know that well enough, so if you can prove that you have Roosevelt blood, they let you in certain places for free.
Oh, okay. So have you gone any places?
Oh, I got into Hyde Park, Sagamore Hill. Yeah.
That's cool. So Ibrahim was pointing out that that national leaders, such as your cousin Theodore Roosevelt, in 1916, and then Winston Churchill in the 40s, they all recognized Islamists for what they are, unlike many university academics that we have here today. But Ibrahim quoted from Roosevelt's 1916 book, Fear God and Take Your Part. And he said, he quoted him, the quote is, if the peoples of Europe in the 7th and 8th centuries and on up to and including the 17th century had not possessed a military equality with and gradually a growing superiority over the Mohammedans who invaded Europe, Europe would be, at this moment, be Mohammedan, and the Christian religion would be exterminated. So that's basically exactly goes to the whole point of Ibrahim's book, The Sword and the Scimitar, 14 centuries of war. And that's exactly, they just wanted to ignite, Christian, obviously, they're not Muslims, they don't believe in Muhammad, and so if you don't, you're an infidel, and you deserve to be killed, unless, of course, you convert, which many Christians... Or enslaved, exactly, or enslaved. Yeah. And pay a tremendous tribute to the caliphate.
It no matter how many times I read and I know about the enslavement and stuff, it's still, for the people I talk to about this who have no knowledge of this, they sit there in shock that this would actually happen. But it's been going on for a millennia. It's insane. I mean, people don't understand that. And how did the audience take all this? Did they react in a positive way?
First of all, it was a packed audience. There was over 300 people there. I would say it was mostly civilian, to tell you the truth. Mostly, I guess, people in the area. I guess word got out, so it became very, very, a place to go. I mean, there were army people there too, but it seemed to me it was mostly civilian. At least they were wearing civilian clothes. And I have to say most people responded very positively. And and the questions were very they were very on point. They were very respectable. They took what he said to heart and respected it. And it seemed to me that my impression was that most of the people there came away with a much better understanding of the history of Islam. So to that extent, it was a very useful speech, worthwhile, and it just tells me that speeches like this should get out more often, and it should be done more widely, not just in Pennsylvania, but in all parts of the country. Otherwise, if you don't hear people like Raymond Ibrahim speaking, and all you're hearing is CAIR and university professors who are basically are Islamists at heart, and who just whitewash and delude their audience, you're not going to get on full understanding of what Islamists are all about.
That's their goal. That's it. You're exactly right. I want to say thank you for joining us, and it's been, again, you have an incredible. I love the amount of detail you put into your articles, and thank you for being active too and helping us to be active. Is there anything you would like us to do besides calling or writing to the governor of Pennsylvania regarding CAIR's activity in the census?
Well, that's the most important to do right now. But you also be aware of when you see things written up about CAIR, when you see articles about CAIR and how they're trying to promote some type of well-being. Don't hesitate to write letters to the editor of newspapers, pointing out the truth about what CAIR is all about. They may not publish it, to tell you the truth, because they don't want to hear that truth. Just a couple of weeks ago, I think, I wrote a letter to the editor to a Pittsburgh newspaper, because they actually said something that was so incorrect about CAIR. So I just wanted to give them just some piece of truth about it, where CAIR is coming from. They called me and asked me if I actually wrote the letter. I said yes, I actually did write the letter, but they never published it. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't stop, because even at the most, the editors see the letters. The more you can educate the public, the more beneficial it is. But right now, I would say in the forefront, the campaign of the day is to get CAIR removed from Pennsylvania Governor Wolf's census campaign, and the more Pennsylvanians do that, write letters. The more letters they get, the bigger the voice we are. Maybe they'll take notice, and maybe he'll do something. Maybe he'll drop them. I don't know, but we have to continue pursuing the effort. We can't stop. We cannot stop.
So where can people follow your work? And please let people know how to do that.
Well, if you go to the American Thinker and you go to the search field, and you plug my name in, Getz, you'll see all the articles that I've written and published over the several years at the American Thinker. If you go to PJ Media and plug my name in, you'll see several articles there. If you go to the Daily Wire, you'll see one article. If you go to Algemeyer, do the same thing. Just plug my name in. Some articles will come up there. Also, the Middle East Forum, they've reprinted my articles as well. Where else? The Times of Israel. You can find it.
Oh, wow!
Times of Israel.
I didn't realize you were there too.
Yes. Yeah, that too, and also the Jewish Exponent. They have. It was a year though since they published me, so I guess if you go on their website and plug my name, you'll see some articles there as well, I would think.
Well, thank you for joining us, Len. I'll have to have you back soon. and maybe again, for those of you who don't know, Len and I have worked on a project regarding Georgetown University and
Right.
their violations of the federal tax code. Take a look
Yeah.
if you want links to that. I can provide you links. Len has, I think Len has the link I put up on LinkedIn, or we've had a lot of people look at that who are lawyers.
Huh.
But yeah. I could even, let me go back. I can really even tell you right now how many people are looking at that. That was just that.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
It's not that far back. I can pull it up real quick. It was mind-numbing to me how many people were looking at this, and we had 820 people. So we can get this right. I think it's 800. Nope. This is 1,144 people look at this article that we wrote.
Oh my. Wait. So you're saying they looked at the actual document that we sent to the IRS?
Yes.
The actual complaint?
Yes. And now they don't show who looked at it, but until it's still posted live on LinkedIn. So it's got my profile, and anybody who wants to can look at it. But they just changed. After so many days, they don't show you who the stats on who looked at it. But we had Georgetown. I sent it out to the link to several lawyers who had graduated from Georgetown and things.
Did they respond to it?
Yeah.
Did they comment?
Oh, I only have 5 comments.
Okay.
One
I'm
is
glad you're doing that. I'm glad it's getting out.
Another one is bad actors in deep state. And let me see. I think there's one more because 2 of them are my responses. Jerry's right. Money talks louder than letters. Pull their funding. Yeah. So,
I think I may have asked you this before, and I think you did do this for me. But can you send me that link again?
I will.
I think last time you did was 800. Now is
right now. Yeah, it keeps going up because I keep it live, and I'm sending you that link right now as we're talking. I just want to say thank you again for joining us.
Okay, thank you very much. I think what I'll do is I'll send a link to the Commissioner of IRS and see if he takes notice.
Oh, I did that. I sent you the wrong link. Hold on just a second. I think I got it. Let me double check. This article is, if for people who don't know, I do recommend you go to this link and view it.
So what is the link? People.
I think I sent it wrong. Let me just figure out how I can share this again. Here we go. Share button. You go to the share button. That's always what you got to do. And where did the share button go? Okay. And I have to think about that one, apparently. It's not like it used to be. So that's slightly changed. I will send it to you.
Okay, I got one thing from you. I'm not sure if that's it.
I don't think that's the link. I did it backwards. All right. I will do what I can. Here we go. And I'll send you something soon. Thank you for joining us, Len. We'll have to have you back soon. God bless.
Okay. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. All right.
Wow. Len is a joy to have, and his work is outstanding, and I do recommend people continue